approach the front of the vehicle. We're going to check the marker lights, the left, right turn signal, four-way flashers, headlights, both high and low beam. Want to make sure they're not cracked, broken, or missing. They're clean, they're proper color, and they work properly. Then we're going to look underneath the vehicle, make sure there's no leaks or puddles. And then we'll open the hood. Come to the passenger side of the vehicle. Check the exhaust system. Make sure it's securely mounted, not damaged, not leaking. Check the alternator. You see it's belt driven. Make sure it's secure. The wires are secure. They're not damaged. We'll check the water pump. See it's secured, not damaged, not leaking. It's also belt driven. We'll check the belt. Make sure it's secure. It's not cut, cracked, or frayed. And there's no more than 3/4 of an inch of free play when you push on it. Check the reservoir for the coolant. Make sure it's at the proper level. Check the hoses. Make sure they're secure. They're not cut, cracked, or leaking. Now we'll go around to the driver's side of the vehicle. I'm going to check the air compressor. It's right here. Make sure it's securely mounted. It's gear driven. It's not damaged, not leaking. Check all the lines connected to and from. Make sure they're not damaged and not leaking. Check the oil. Make sure that it's at the proper level. I'll check the power steering pump. Make sure it's securely mounted, it's not damaged, not leaking. I'll check all lines and hoses in the power steering system, making sure they're not cut, cracked, frayed, they're not broken in any way, not leaking. I'll check the reservoir, make sure it's at the proper level. Then I'll check the gearbox, make sure it's securely mounted, it's not damaged, it's not leaking. Check the pitman arm, the drag link, the upper knuckle, the lower knuckle, down here, and the tie rod. Make sure they're not cracked, bent, or broken. They're all properly secured with castle nuts and cotter pins in place. Then I'm going to check the frame. I'll make sure that it's securely mounted. It's not cracked, broken. There's no welds. There's no loose or missing parts. Then I'll check my shock absorber and mounts, making sure that they're properly secured. They're not damaged. It's not leaking. And there's no missing parts. Then I'll check my spring mounts and my U-bolts, making sure they're not cracked, bent, or broken. They're properly secured. The bushings are in place. There's no missing parts. Check the springs. Make sure they're securely mounted. They're not cracked, broken. They're not misaligned, and no missing parts. Then I'll check the brake hose. Make sure that it's secured. It's not cut, cracked, or leaking. The brake chamber, securely mounted. It's not bent. It's not dented. It's not damaged. It's not leaking. The slack adjuster and the push rod are securely mounted. It's not cracked, bent, or broken. There's no loose or missing parts. I'll look in here and check the brake drums and linings. Make sure they're securely mounted. They're not cracked, bent, or broken. There's no missing parts. And there is no oil, grease, or debris. And they're also not worn dangerously thin. Then I'll come out and check the tire. I'll make sure I have even tread wear. There's no less than 4/32 on my steer. It's properly inflated, and there's no abrasions, bubbles, or cuts. Then I'll check the rim, make sure it's not cracked, bent, or broken. There's no illegal welds. Check my lug nuts, make sure there's none broken or missing. There's no rust trails, and no shiny threads would indicate that they're loose. These look like they need to be checked. I would then check the valve stem, make sure it's not leaking, and if there's a cap present. I'll check my inner and outer hub oil seal. Make sure that it's not cracked or broken or damaged, and it's not leaking, and that this cap is in place. I'll then go in here and check the mirror, make sure that it's securely mounted, not damaged. I'll check my door. Oh, I gotta get the key. I'll make sure that the hinges are secured and that the door opens and closes properly. Then I'll check my steps, make sure they're solid, secure, free of debris. I'll check my fuel tank and my depth tank, making sure that they're securely mounted. There's no broken, or loose, or missing parts. Properly secured, there's no dents, not damaged, not leaking. And make sure these caps are secured and they're not leaking. Check my catwalk and my steps, making sure they're solid, secure, and free of debris. I do want to check all my lights and reflectors on the side of my tractor, making sure they're not cracked, broken, or missing. They're clean, the proper color, and they work properly. Then I'll come here and I'll check my air lines and make sure they're not cut or frayed or cracked. In this case, it's a plastic, and make sure it's not leaking. Then I'll check my electrical line, make sure it's secured at my trailer and at my tractor, and that there are no bare wires. I'll look in here and check my drive shaft and my universal joint. Make sure that it's not cracked, bent, or broken, securely mounted. I'm gonna look back here and look at my torque bar. Make sure it's securely mounted, not damaged. I'll check my header board. Make sure it's not cracked, bent, or broken. Check the clearance light up here. Make sure it's not cracked, broken, or missing. It's clean, the proper color, and it works properly. Then I'll check my suspension. I'm gonna check my spring mounts, my springs, my U-bolts, and my shock absorber mounts, same as I checked up front. I'll come back here and check my airbag. Make sure it's securely mounted, it's not cut, cracked, or leaking. Then I'll check my brake system. The brake hose, brake chamber, slack adjuster, and push rod, the brake drums and linings, the same as I checked up front. Then I'll check my tire, my rim, my lug nuts, my valve stem and cap, the same as I checked up front. Difference on the tires, the minimum tread depth, 2 seconds. Check the bud space between the tires. Make sure it's evenly spaced, no rubbing, no objects or debris in there. Then I'll check my inner and outer axle seal. Make sure it's not bent or cracked or broken, and there's no leaks. Now I'm going to go ahead and check my coupling system. I'll check the apron, bottom of the trailer here. Make sure that it's not bent, it's not cracked or broken, and I'll make sure there's no gap between that and the skid plate. I would then look inside and check the kingpin, make sure it's not bent, and if the locking jaws are locked securely around that kingpin. I then check this release handle, make sure it's in a locked position, the safety lock is in place. I'll check the slider rail and the locking pins, make sure it's in a locked position. It's not cracked or broken, and there's no loose or missing pins. I would then check the platform and the mounting bolts, make sure that everything's properly secured, nothing's cracked or broken. There are no loose or missing bolts and no missing pins. And then the last thing on that would be to check the space. I have the proper amount of space from the rear of my tractor to my landing gear. And I'll check my mud flap, make sure it's securely mounted and not damaged. Check the lights at the rear of my tractor, left and right turn signal, four-way flashers, brake lights and tail lights. Make sure they're not cracked, broken, or missing. They're clean, the proper color, and they work properly. Then I'll check my landing gear. The frame, securely mounted. It's not cracked, bent, or broken. There's no loose or missing parts, no missing bolts. The legs are fully raised. The arm is in its holder. I'll check the side of my trailer. Check the frame, make sure it's not cracked, bent, or broken. Then I would look underneath to make sure there are no missing cross members and that there are no holes in the floor. I'm going to check all lights and reflectors on the side of my trailer. Make sure they're not cracked, broken, or missing. They're clean, the proper color, and they work properly. And then I would check my ABS light back here on the back of my trailer, make sure that it's functioning. I'll check my trailer tandem release handle and the locking pins. Make sure they're in a locked position and the handle is properly secured. Then I'll check my mud flap, make sure it's securely mounted and not damaged. Check my doors, make sure they open and close properly, the hinges are secure, the latches work. Check clearance lights, left, right turn signal, four-way flashers, brake lights, tail lights, and my ID light. Make sure they're not cracked, broken, or missing. They're clean, the proper color, and they work properly. And this completes outside the vehicle.